This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as financial advice. All views expressed on this podcast are solely the opinions of the host and/or any guests that we might have from time to time. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or to follow a particular investing strategy.
Hello, you sexy sat stackers. Welcome to the Bitcoin Bulletin Podcast, DCA Wednesday edition. Today is Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, and this will be stack number 2 of our new series on weekly dollar cost averaging Bitcoin. Our first stack, of course, was last Wednesday, the 28th, and we stacked $20 at an average price of $39,716.40, which scored us 49,224 Satoshis after a 45-cent fee. Again, I picked $20 because that's a relatively small amount that pretty much everybody should be able to afford to stack. Obviously, some people can afford to stack a whole lot more, but in some parts of the world, $20 is a difficult amount of money to come up with. But in general, at least here in the United States, $20 is lunch or a couple of lattes, or some other habit that you have that you could easily forego for just one day in order to contribute to your future. As usual, we're going to stack on Cash App because it's super easy. And in lieu of using the automated dollar cost averaging stacking feature, I'm manually buying because, once again, I like to watch the prices and obsess relentlessly about them before I make my purchase. So we're going to go to our handy dandy Cash App, and if you don't have Cash App, there is a referral code in the show notes where you can earn a $5 bonus for signing up. There are terms and conditions to apply. Disclaimer, they are not a sponsor of this podcast. We do not have any sponsors. We are currently at block 694,171, and we're going to purchase $20. And that's going to be at a price of $38,900.05, which is almost $1,000 cheaper than last Wednesday. There's a 45-cent fee, so that's going to get us 50,257 sats. So we've confirmed our purchase, and now we have a total of 99,481 sats over just 2 stacks. After our 90 cents in transaction fees we paid over the last 2 stacks, I have $38.70. So if you're following along at home, it might seem like we're getting off to a slow start, but that's the whole point of dollar cost averaging. Also, we have a thunderstorm going on outside, and apparently there's a bird chirping relentlessly. I don't know if you can hear it, but if you hear a screeching noise, that would be a parrot somewhere that is seeking attention. All right. So again, the whole point of dollar cost averaging is that they say time in the markets beats timing the markets, and it'll probably take a while before you can see that, the results of that, especially since many of us believe we're still in a post-halving bull run. So as price goes up and then comes back down in the short term, things might look prettier, or maybe they'll look uglier. But again, we intend to do this every Wednesday until either you stop listening or we're all filthy rich. Just kidding. Again, this is not investment advice. This is just me documenting my experiment with what is one of the most popular forms and most tried and true forms of investing, according to everything I've read, the dollar cost average. Hey, and if you dollar cost averaging along with me, you not only DCA'd, but you also BTFD'd, because the price has bounced recently from a low of about 29,000 just a week or so ago to a high of about 42,000 before they had a little bit of a minor correction to our current price range of approximately $38,900. All right. A little bit of news. Since the last time we spoke, Bitcoin had a 6% difficulty adjustment. That would seem to evidence that the dreaded miner crackdown in China is beginning to wane, as at least some of that hash power is coming back online. Currently, we're also scheduled for a projected increase of 4.5%, another difficulty increase in about 9 days. So it won't be too long before we're back to a new difficulty all-time high if things keep trending this way. It was interesting to see that at least some of those miners are relocating to Texas and Wyoming here in the United States, although apparently a lot of them simply got loaded up in the back of trucks and crossed over into Central Asia, where electricity is fairly cheap and they don't have the building codes and stringent requirements that we have here, so they could get up and running a lot faster, as opposed to some of the United States mines that might not be online for a couple of more months. If you are like me and a lot of people, you are anxiously staring at the stock to flow charts popularized by infamous Twitter tweeter Plan B. He's been relatively quiet, which some might attribute to the fact that the Bitcoin price has been trending the bottom of his model. Although he did say a couple weeks ago that sailing season had begun and he was going to be out to sea, and you wouldn't hear from him again until August. He did post a couple of posts fairly recently, including August 1st, just 3 days ago, when he said that, quote, the realized cap is rising again, and calling the Bitcoin bounce, quote, like clockwork. His sentiment was echoed by rising Bitcoin young buck Will Clemente, who Plan B actually retweeted as saying, quote, historically speaking, following each touch of this lower stock to flow deflection trend line, Bitcoin has gone on a absolute tear. So that remains to be seen, but we did bounce quite a bit from just a couple of days ago. It seems like when people were calling for 20,000, some people were even predicting a Bitcoin price of 15K. The other major news out there is basically what I'd like to call this complete bullshit infrastructure bill. Regardless of what you think politically, regardless of how you vote, when most people hear the term infrastructure, they think of repairing our crumbling roads and bridges that we've heard so much about in the news over the last couple years. While there's a pork fest like we've probably never seen before crammed into this bill, the thing that is affecting us Bitcoiners the most is the upcoming proposed Bitcoin regulation, which naturally in congressional style they crammed into the bill at the last minute, just a day or so before they had planned on voting the law into existence, before they had even published it for most members of Congress or the general public to even read. Kind of a la the way they passed a couple of other infamous projects the last time that Biden was in the White House, or at least in the vice president position. There's not just proposed regulation that's been reintroduced into the Congress again, but in the infrastructure bill, the onerous reporting requirements that would, as originally proposed, treat every node operator, every Bitcoin miner, and every software developer as a, quote, broker, and subjecting them to the bank secrecy rules and onerous KYC requirements that arguably would be completely impossible to comply with. CoinDesk was celebrating a little bit with their headline that the cyber hornets have basically taken on Congress and that there might be some compromises in the works, specifically that miners would possibly be exempted from the new definition of brokers. But this is a pet peeve of mine, because we always hear from politicians like the late John McCain and other mushy moderates who say things like, we need to have a national conversation, or we need to be reasonable, or compromise. Well, reasonable regulation is always a lie. When it comes to our government, and like most governments, man, you give them an inch and they're going to come for a mile. As soon as the ink dries, you can guarantee that they're going to be coming for even more Bitcoin regulation. The only way to deal with is just to say no to their bullshit. You lose the battle the minute you start playing by their game. I've seen this before in other lines of work. I've represented employees in a previous life in our labor organization where in this case, the city government would want to come to you and say, hey, we want to work with you. We're proposing this really horrible increase in costs to our employees or decrease in benefits. But if you just sit down with us and agree to take maybe half of the medicine that we're proposing, then we'll all win, and we'll all have just been, we'll all be just a little better. It's a give and take, a win-win situation for both of us, which was always a load of crap. Not once did I see any time that we were forced to give anything up that we ever got that back. And of course, the next year or the next time it came time to negotiate benefits or salary information, it was always, hey, we need to get a little bit more from you, or this got a little bit more expensive, or we just want to make you jump through one little more hoop. Again, you lose that game the minute you play that game. Fortunately, as many people like to point out, Bitcoin is FU money. So there really isn't a damn thing they can do to stop us, except make you a criminal. I guess if you're okay with living in the shadows and operating in an underground economy, then none of this should bother you in the first place. Hopefully you're holding your own private keys anyway. However, if like what seems to be a growing majority of this country, you are absolutely fed up with this headlong march into totalitarianism, into Marxism, into fascism, you need to get on the phone and call your representative in your senator's office right away. You know, a lot of people think my vote doesn't count. We're just the little guy. Only the lobbyists and the big corporations get their way, and they're never going to listen to us. But I can guarantee you, if you make their lives a living hell, if you jam their phone circuits up to where they can't even make a phone call because it's just like a DDoS on their phone network, it does have an impact. The only thing that these dirty, rotten scoundrels care about more than lining their nest is making sure their asses get reelected. And if enough of you call and enough of you let them know just how pissed off you are about this last-minute sneak attack on us in their so-called infrastructure bill, you'll scare a few of them into worrying about their reelection. And it won't take that many at this point in time to stop it. Basically, they need every single Democrat and a handful of Republicans to vote for the thing. And it just takes one or two, and maybe there's hope. Anyway, that's just my 2 thoughts on this upcoming infrastructure bill. As you know, we don't have any sponsors in this show. I did mention that there is a Cash App referral link, which we'll include in the show notes, or you can just remember the code PZBNXLF, easy, right? Papa, Zulu, Bravo, November, X-Ray, Lima, Foxtrot. And when you sign up for Cash App, you'll get a $5 bonus, and we'll get a referral as well. So that helps us out a little bit. Other ways you can show us support is we've just added the ability to sponsor us, or support us via the Anchor FM website. You can find us on our Anchor FM page. Or there's a Bitcoin donation address that we include in the show notes. And of course, one way you can always support me is by purchasing one of my books. My first book, Understanding Bitcoin for Noobs, is available on barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. And you can pretty much order it from any bookstore that you shop at. If you want to go to your local bookstore, whether they have it in stock or not, they can get it for you in a couple of days. I just checked Barnes & Noble, and it's available to ship for delivery in 4 days if I wanted to click order right now. Anyway, thank you for following along with us on this dollar cost average Wednesday experiment. I know it's not super exciting, only our second stack, but hopefully we'll sit back together and watch that stack grow. Again, don't forget to keep stacking those sats, you sexy sat stackers. I am off to the beach. Or maybe just to stare at price charts again for a while. Who am I kidding? I'm going to stare at price charts. Anyway, have a great day, and we will talk again soon.